What does a pentagon-shaped sign indicate? When approaching a railroad crossing with flashing red lights, you must. What should you do if your accelerator sticks while driving? A yellow circular sign with an X means. When driving at night, you must dim your high beams when you are within how many feet of an oncoming vehicle? What should you do if you see a pedestrian with a white cane? The basic speed law means you must. What does a flashing yellow traffic light mean? When parking uphill with a curb, you should turn your front wheels. When should you use your horn? A double solid yellow line in the center of the road means. What is the first thing you should do if your vehicle starts to skid? Which headlights should you use in heavy fog? A driver's hand and arm extended downward means they are signaling. When entering a freeway, you should. What should you do if you see a roadwork ahead sign? What is the main cause of rear-end collisions? What does a solid white line between traffic lanes mean? If another driver refuses to dim their high beams, you should. At what age can you typically obtain a learner's permit in most U.S. states? What does a flashing yellow traffic light mean? When parallel parking, your wheels should be within how many inches from the curb? A red triangular sign pointing downward means. When approaching a school bus with flashing red lights, you must. What is the hand signal for a right turn? What does a solid double yellow line mean? When should you use your headlights? A diamond-shaped sign indicates. What should you do if your car begins to skid? A broken white line on the highway means. At an uncontrolled intersection, who has the right of way? What does a pentagon-shaped sign indicate? When driving in fog, you should use. What should you do if your brakes fail? A flashing red light at an intersection means. What does a round yellow sign with an X and two R letters mean? The legal blood alcohol concentration (BAC) limit for drivers 21 plus in most states is. If you see an emergency vehicle with flashing lights, you must. What is the safe following distance rule? If you are involved in a collision, you must first. What should you do before changing lanes? A red circle with a slash through it on a sign means. What is the correct hand signal for slowing down or stopping? When parking uphill with a curb, you should turn your wheels. A flashing yellow arrow means. What does a solid white line mean between lanes? At a four-way stop, if two drivers arrive at the same time, who has the right of way? What is the maximum speed limit on most U.S. interstate highways unless posted otherwise? When must you dim your high beams? A triangular orange sign on the back of a vehicle means. What should you do if you miss your exit on the freeway? The 2-second rule is used to measure. What does a yellow curb indicate? When are you allowed to turn right on red? Hydroplaning can occur when driving on wet roads at speeds of. A broken yellow line on your side of the road means. What is the legal limit for blood alcohol concentration, BAC, for drivers under 21 in most states? When approaching a roundabout, you must. The main purpose of seat belts is to. If your tire blows out while driving, you should. When driving in fog, you should use. If you see a pedestrian with a white cane, it means. When a school bus has flashing red lights, you must. What does a pentagon-shaped sign indicate? What is the minimum safe following distance at highway speeds? When approaching a railroad crossing without signals, you should. If traffic signals are not working at an intersection, you should. A blue road sign typically provides information about. When merging onto a freeway, you should. When driving at night, you should. The primary purpose of traffic laws is to. The main cause of rear-end collisions is. You must yield the right-of-way to emergency vehicles by. What does a flashing red traffic light mean? When you see a double solid yellow line in the middle of the road, it means. If you refuse to take a chemical test for BAC when requested by police, your license may be. What is the purpose of rumble strips on highways? If your accelerator sticks while driving, you should. What is the move over law? What is the correct procedure when entering a skid? What does a broken white line on the road indicate? When approaching a flashing yellow traffic light, you should. If your brake pedal goes to the floor, your first action should be to a diamond-shaped sign on the road means when are road surfaces most slippery? If you miss your highway exit, you should. What is the main purpose of seat belts? When parallel parking, your car should be within. What should you do if another driver tailgates you? When you see a yellow "No Passing Zone" sign, it is usually located. If an oncoming vehicle has high beams on, you should. What is the maximum BAC allowed for most drivers 21 plus in the U.S.? A round traffic sign indicates if your tire blows out, you should. In which situation must you always stop your vehicle? If you see a steady yellow traffic light as you approach an intersection, you should. When driving in a construction zone, you should. What does a green arrow traffic signal mean? If you are under 21 and caught driving with any measurable BAC, you could face what is the correct hand signal for a right turn? What should you do when approaching a school bus with flashing red lights? What does a flashing yellow traffic signal mean? If you see a pedestrian with a white cane at an intersection, you must. The main purpose of road signs with an orange background is to. When parallel parking, you should park within how many inches from the curb? A broken yellow line on the road indicates. What is the correct hand signal for a left turn? Hydroplaning occurs when. When must you use headlights? The main purpose of a diamond-shaped sign is to. When merging onto a freeway, you should. What should you do if your vehicle begins to skid? A red triangular sign pointing downward means. What does a solid white line between lanes mean? When driving in fog, you should use. If a traffic signal is not working, you should. A flashing red traffic signal means. When approaching a roundabout, you should. Double solid yellow lines in the center of the road mean. If an emergency vehicle is approaching with flashing lights and siren, you must.